It's beginning to look a lot like
Christmas. Beginning to look a lot like Christmas is what I'm saying. And by that I mean that it's nigh to impossible to go anywhere without being caught in traffic with last-minute shoppers. That and it's snowy, but the longer that I'm alive, the more I realize that that's more of a negative. But it's Christmas, the most wonderful time of the year. Not really. It's cold out, people get sick, we have to give presents to people, which was fun when we were kids, but now that we're older, it's just stressful. Now instead of getting Lego Star Wars The Complete Saga for your Wii, you gotta get your brother's snot-nosed kid Drake a Nerf gun or something, and you already spent most of your paycheck on God of War Ragnarok, so you're kind of in a hole. You gotta decide who to buy for, how much to spend, and the worst part, what to get them. Ah, you got me an open tissue box. Yeah, I got overwhelmed. Even in the midst of all these things, there's something that's different about Christmas time. Even when I'm not able to see more of my family or watch Home Alone or drink any eggnog. Wow, I'm Midwestern. Eggnog, dude? It's eggnog. Eggnog. With an E. But even without these things, even if it doesn't snow, even if I don't put up a single Christmas decoration, there's something that's different about it. Maybe it's because I've grown up in a society that's told me it's supposed to be that way, but why? Well, that's what I want to talk about today, but it's going to require us to go back a ways. The year is 0-ish AD, and I know what you're thinking. We're going to talk about the Nativity, and we are going to talk about it, but this is just a pit stop. You see, while there are a lot of historical documents saying that Jesus existed, there are very few, none, referring to his date of birth. Even the biblical accounts don't specify the time of year that Jesus was born. It does, however, specify that there were shepherds out in the field tending to their flock. Now, this isn't hard evidence either way, but it's less likely to be during the winter just because of this. There's a big reason that I'll get to in a little bit as to why people say Jesus was born on December 25th, but a smaller one is that Jesus is said to have died around March 25th. There was an old theological theory that great prophets were conceived in the afterlife at the same time of year that they were conceived on Earth. Therefore, adding 9 months to March 25th comes out as December 25th, which would be his birth. And yeah, that's uncorroborated and kind of a wacky thought process, but anyway, tangent done, let's rewind some more. The year is about 500 BC, or BCE if you prefer. Rome is getting ready to celebrate the winter solstice. Winter solstice, you may say. Isn't that when Drax said his father used to tell him the story of his conception in Guardians of the Galaxy 2?
My father would tell the story of impregnating my mother every winter solstice.
That's disgusting.
Weird that you remembered that, but yes. Winter solstice is the time of the year when the Earth's tilt reaches its maximum distance away from the sun. This was especially celebrated in pagan cultures, including Rome. Roman citizens began celebrating this as a week-long festival in the name of the god Saturn, naming it Saturnalia. During this time, Roman citizens would give gifts. I guess they had to give Drake like a sword or whatever kids played with back then. Gamble and treat their slaves as equals. Would have been cool if they did that all the time, but I guess you take what you can get. In fact, it wasn't until the 4th century that there was even any mention of Christ's birth, and that was under the rule of Constantine. Now, Constantine was interesting because he was pretty much the first Roman emperor to introduce any sort of concept of freedom of religion into Rome. Pretty cool choice overall, but he also started intentionally putting Christians into positions in governments and giving them special exemptions, therefore entwining the government with the church. And if history has taught us anything, it's that religion and government do not mix well, at least not in this fashion. This set in motion a chain of events that would be the bloody ordeal of Dark Age Catholic Church history. Now backed by the government, the church, which was rapidly becoming a corrupt organization, now had the authority to appropriate Saturnalia into their own celebration of Christ's birth. Hence the decision to place his birth on the 25th of December. The church was like, solstice? The Saturn, sun god? More like son of God, dude. Same as they did with Easter, actually, with the celebration of the goddess of spring. Goddess of spring, dude? More like God, death, spring back. Huh? Okay, yeah. Yeah, Easter I hardly know. Just realized my microphone was turned around the wrong way, so sorry if you just couldn't hear me in that last segment. But now we know where it started, but why is it still here? I'm going to answer this in the simplest way possible. You see the highlighted areas here, right there? Those were the areas that the Catholic Church had control in this time period. The Catholic Church is out here playing Civ 6 for a religious victory, okay? You better believe that some of the religious traditions are going to stick around. On top of that, because gift giving is such an integral part of this holiday dating back to 500 BC, it was bound to stick around, and the corporate world really latches on to Christmas because of the whole gift thing. Movies are made about giving gifts. Commercials are centered around buying this product for a gift. Traditions and customs literally surround gifts. We sell products to wrap gifts in. It's absolutely the capitalist holiday. Is that a bad thing? Not necessarily, not if you see it for what it is. So that's the history of Christmas. But what about all these weird customs that we have surrounding it? For example, what about the Christmas tree? Well, that was something else that was taken from Saturnalia. Evergreen trees were supposed to represent new and persevering light after the solstice. People would hang apples from them, and that's where we get our modern concept of ornaments. Well, what about mistletoe? Those came from druids, not the druids you see on D&D. These were people who lived out in the woods who thought they were the druids from D&D. These binds of needles were supposed to be a symbol of healing and a kissing. No, they were supposed to be a sign of healing and peace, and when they were given to someone, they would hang them over their doorframe. To expand upon the tradition, in Norse mythology, the goddess Frigg would give a kiss to anyone who would pass under them. Well, how about Santa? Well, Santa Claus, otherwise known as Tim Allen, is one of the few Christmas traditions that was actually invented for Christmas by Catholics. You may have heard of Santa referred to as jolly old St. Nicholas. Well, that's because that's who he's based on. Nicholas was a wealthy clergyman in the 5th century. He was known for giving to the poor and named the patron saint of children, among other things. Now he's immortalized as a large man in a silly costume who has other people's kids sit on his lap. And frankly, that's a great representation of a clergyman. So, in conclusion, what is Christmas? Is it anything substantial? Not really.
It's the first season of Lost on DVD.
That's the meaning of Christmas?
No, it's a metaphor. It represents lack of payoff.
There's nothing holy about it, nothing magical, except Santa, of course, who I've set a bear trap for this year. Christmas, at the end of the day, is what you make of it. It's what you want it to be with the people you share it with. Even back in the days of Rome with Saturnalia, they were using this time to spend with one another, to show each other how they cared, to give gifts, to not treat them as slaves. You know, it's the small things. So next time someone asks you what the season means to you, don't say presents or cookies or Santa or reindeer or even Jesus. The reason behind the season is to let your slaves outside. Take them to McDonald's, bring them to Walmart. Just let them see the light of day, please.